Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. Today in D.C., a tug of war unfolds over gun laws. While the Senate is wrapping up a bill to restrict guns, the Supreme Court just struck down a New York law on carrying concealed handguns in public. This could have implications on a national level. NTD's Melina Wisecup brings us the details.
In one of the most significant gun rights rulings in over a decade, the Supreme Court today ruled that New York's requirements on carrying concealed handguns is unconstitutional. New York's governor is ready to counter this conservative ruling.
That our new laws are going to be looking at restrictions on sensitive locations, changing the permitting process.
The New York law, which has been in place for over a century, requires people to get permission from the state to carry a handgun outside of their homes. And to get that permission, people have to show that they have a special need for self-protection distinguishable from that of the general community. In a 6-3 ruling, justices ruled that this violates the Constitution. Republicans on Capitol Hill today praised the ruling.
I think it's a big win, obviously.
Basically, the Supreme Court said, look, we're not kidding. The Bill of Rights is not an a la carte menu. The Bill of Rights includes the Second Amendment.
Justice Clarence Thomas wrote in the majority opinion that the New York law prevented, quote, law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their right to keep and bear arms in public. We conclude that the state's licensing regime violates the Constitution. This set off Democrats on Capitol Hill today.
This is the most far-reaching anti-common sense gun reform law in 15 years.
And Senator Chris Coons tells NTD that this move by the court blunts their efforts now underway to tighten up national gun laws.
It shows that we have an activist conservative majority on the court. I don't think that gun safety laws threaten fundamental Second Amendment rights in the way that, at least based on what I was briefly told, Justice Thomas's opinion suggests.
Coons is a co-sponsor of a new gun bill that's quickly making its way through Congress.
So I urge my Republican colleagues, let's get this bill passed and pass it today.
Today, 15 Republicans voted with Democrats to overcome a filibuster, speeding up the final passage of the gun bill.
We're considering a bipartisan bill that will make our country safer without making it any less free.
It'll invest around $800 million to incentivize states to implement or strengthen their red flag laws. The bill also bans people from getting a gun for 5 years if they've been convicted of domestic violence against a current or former dating partner. The Senate bill also invests in mental health programs and expands background checks for buyers under 21 years old. Republicans who support the bill defend their vote, arguing that it keeps the Second Amendment intact. But this Republican cooperation has drawn backlash from other Republicans who say it's only the first step to eroding a fundamental constitutional right.
Melina, the Senate moved rather quickly to further restrict guns with this new bill here. How soon can we see this bill being signed into law by the president?
Yes, Steve. So the speed with which this gun bill has moved through Congress is not very common. That doesn't happen very often. You saw senators come together in just a matter of weeks. They negotiated on a final bill that has enough bipartisan support to send off to the White House. And while this quick speed was praised by those who are pushing for this gun bill, others say it's left a bad taste in their mouth. Particularly Senator Kennedy told us earlier that's one reason why he's not offering a vote on this bill at all. Here's what he told us.
And I don't completely understand what's in it. Most of my colleagues don't. They're ramming it through, shut up and vote. There's no hearing. There's no amendment process. We're not going to be allowed to offer amendments. I mean, literally, it's just here it is. Take it or leave it. Well, I'm leaving it. There's an insider game in the United States Senate and the United States Congress that the American people don't see, they're not part of, and frankly, many senators aren't part of.
And after the Senate votes on its final passage, it's off to the House for their final vote, and it is expected to pass the Democrat-controlled House. Majority Leader Steny Hoyer told us he will bring it to the floor immediately after the Senate acts, which could be as early as tonight or tomorrow. So we could see by the end of this week this new gun bill off to the White House for the president's signature. Steve, back to you.
To discuss the pain we're feeling at the pump, we caught up with Congressman Doug LaMalfa from California. LaMalfa says that gas rebates and gas tax breaks only offer temporary relief, while we need a more practical long-term solution. Congressman LaMalfa, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Appreciate it. Glad to be with you.
Congressman, you represent a district in California, what some would say is a very green state, if you will. Right now, the energy crisis that we're seeing, would you say that it's self-inflicted, or was it preventable?
Largely preventable, because the mandates that keep coming down the pike from my home state, as well as during the Biden administration, they don't acknowledge the strides we've made to improve how we do things in this country. We have the cleanest running cars and trucks and tractors ever, and the way we extract our energy sources are very clean and very respectful of the environment, but you don't get credit for that. Take ANWR in Alaska. It's 1.3 million acres. They only want to use about 10,000 acres of it, not even in the good part. You would think that they're ruining the whole refuge up there, is what you talk about. So, in my home state and my district, we burn hundreds of thousands. Last year, one fire was 1 million acres. And so the disruption that is to air quality and the amount of CO2 release, if you want to worry about CO2, which I don't, CO2 is only 0.04% of our atmosphere, 0.04%. So it's really self-inflicted by people that don't really care about the suffering of American people right now.
How preventable would you say this energy crisis could be in terms of the policies that we're seeing coming out of the Biden administration?
Whatever they've been talking about, whether it's the Newsom one in California or the Biden one here in D.C., they're nipping it around the edges to look like they're taking action. Handing out gas cards to everybody is not going to resolve the problem. It might provide some very temporary relief. And so even California, they're going to hand out the gas cards to people that have electric cars, for crying out loud. All they would have to do, if you want to do some government relief, would be turn off the taxes at the gas station for Californians. Now, Biden's talking about doing that here in D.C. for the 18 cents a gallon. We need to turn the production back on, which we're capable of. We can make more natural gas than anywhere in the world. So much available to us. Our petroleum production, we can do it ecologically soundly, and they just want to keep cinching it down because of their idealism of forcing everybody into electric cars, which have their own issues with how you're going to produce them and the batteries for them.
Congressman, California, your state, has some of the highest gas prices in the nation. What are you hearing directly from your constituents right now with inflation and energy prices?
Severe anger. They believe their government does not give a rat's rear end about how they feel, what's happening to them, and there seems to be no remedy coming from the Newsom administration or the Biden one to help them out, whether it's electricity with power shutoffs all the time when the wind blows in my part of the state because they're afraid a tree branch is going to hit a power line, cause a forest fire, or the production of energy that they need. They're just saying, well, let them eat cake, let them have the electric cars that they can't afford, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for electric car. People in this economy can hardly afford any more, if they're renters, to pay rent as well as buy food, pay their power, and drive to work at $6 or $7 gas in some places in my home state. So government is completely out of touch and seems to be not caring about it. I think they don't care if they lose the midterm elections if they can establish in place building blocks of tearing down our energy economy and the way energy comes from and completely permanently shift it to something else. And if they do that with the refineries, if they do that with their production, it'll be very hard to untrack ourselves from that. If they have everybody in the financial world that finances big projects like that going this ESG direction, then this permanently changes the game. And I think that's really the goal over here. It's not so much about, we're going to do something about CO2. They want to change the game and force our lives to be completely different.
Congressman LaMalfa, thank you. The White House today agrees to cancel $6 billion in federal student loan debt. This is specifically for 200,000 borrowers who claim they were defrauded by their college, and President Biden is also considering broader student loan forgiveness. And Congresswoman Virginia Foxx is a Republican leader of the House Committee on Education and Labor. She's been advocating for the education system since she took office. And with both parties celebrating 50 years of Title IX, we had a chance to sit down with the Congresswoman earlier. Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report.
Thank you for having me.
Congresswoman, President Biden is set to make his decision on whether or not he is going to relieve student loan debt in the coming weeks. I want to get your thoughts on this. Do you think if you were to decide yes, it would be a good thing, or what are the potential unintended consequences?
This is one of the most unfair things that President Biden could do. He's going to pay off the debts using hardworking taxpayer money of wealthy people in this country. More than 70% of the debt that is owed now is owed by the top half of the earners in this country. So we are not helping low-income people. For every dollar that is paid off for a medical student, a medical school tuition, only 10 cents for a bachelor's degree student. 70% of the people in this country either chose not to or had no opportunity to go to college, but they are the ones who are going to be saddled with this debt. Make no mistake about it, the debt doesn't go away. It is a transfer of wealth from some people to others, and it's totally unfair.
I mean, as you're saying this, it sort of reminds me of, Mao's early form of communism during the Cultural Revolution, a form of class warfare in a sense.
Most people won't understand it as class warfare because Democrats are so good at language. They're saying, oh, let's forgive the student debt, without realizing that that just puts a burden on the American people. It will make inflation worse, probably drive it above 9%. So it's just, again, 70% of the people in this country do not have college degrees. They chose not to go, or they chose another route. Also, what about the people who did borrow money, who paid it back? What is fair to them? What is fair to the parents who might have worked 2 jobs to come up with the money for tuition and fees so their students wouldn't have to borrow money? It's just wrong in every sense of the word. It undermines our values in this country. We sign on a line to borrow money and to pay it back, and that's what we should be doing.
Congresswoman, right now Title IX has been in the headlines throughout the day for different reasons. 50 years since it was signed into law. What does Title IX mean to you 50 years later?
Well, when Title IX was passed, it was hailed to help women students and girls, women and girls, so there would be equity in the way they were treated in both public and private schools. It was particularly focused on sports. We went from a time when only 1 in 27 females participated in sports in college to now 1 in 3. It has opened up scholarship opportunities for students. It's opened up job opportunities for female students. So it was a good thing. It's one of the rare things the federal government has done that has been good. I spoke about the 50th anniversary of Title IX today on the floor, and I hailed it. But I'm very concerned with what the Biden administration wants to do in changing the rules related to Title IX.
In that regard, do you think that a possible solution to this whole transgender argument in sports could be, or a reasonable solution would be, to potentially have their own league for trans athletes? Or what do you think is the proper way forward here?
Well, I'm not involved very much in sports myself and never have been, but what I don't want to see happen is for women to be erased. And that was what I said today. What the Biden administration is doing, and it's so ironic, given the fact that Democrats really were the leaders to give women equity. And now it basically looks like they're trying to erase women. It is unfair for men to be competing in women's athletics. I think the Swimming Association has made a good decision to say, you know, if you did not transition, I think by the age of 12, then you can't compete in women's swimming. And I think that is a good thing to do. I haven't delved into what the options are. What I don't want to see happen is women to be discriminated against again. It is totally unfair. I also want us to protect due process. I have to tell you, Betsy DeVos and the people in the Department of Education did a fantastic job of clarifying Title IX rules and coming up with a great set of rules. And I hate to see that thrown out with very little thought and to promote a progressive woke agenda.
Congresswoman Virginia Foxx, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.